Welcome once again to the Old Cow Report. Of course, I'm your host, Chuck Lee. We're coming to you live from the beautiful Banbury Place Tire Factory right here in downtown Eau Claire. And I want to welcome you to tonight's program. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about tonight, as usual. And with me, once again, is my rusty, trusty sidekick, straight from an engagement at Sacred Heart Hospital. He's been there, starring there for 2 weeks on the road. It's my rusty, trusty sidekick.
Yes.
Fred, the Truth Stafford.
Yeah, howdy.
Glad to see you again, Fred. And
Glad to see you too.
been on the road now for 2.5, 3 weeks out there doing summer stock at the Sacred Heart Hospital. And
Yeah.
how did the program go there?
I think it's going well. It's
Well,
a good program, and they got some wonderful nurses up there at Sacred Heart Hospital. Virginia Hartman is one of them.
Well, that's good, Fred. We're glad to hear it. And of course, you had a pretty good captive audience there for them weeks. And
Yeah.
how did they like the show?
Well, some of them watched it last time.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. So it looks like we got a little bit of heat there on the cameras. Or of course, I don't know anything. I'm talking about Roy Rogers Hoff, the pyrotechnical engineer on the other side of the glass there. And Roy's been with us now for what, Roy? 20, 25 years? Something like that? Yeah, he's shaking his head, yes. And of course, he replaced Chris and Cliff Economaki, the Siamese twins of engineering, who hopped a freighter on the Eau Claire River, Fred, and we haven't heard from him since.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as usual, Fred, we got a lot to talk about, so we might as well dive right in there and get to talking about it. And of course, we will invite you to come and give us a call on the Old Cow phone, and Roy will be putting the number up. And on top of that, we've got a homepage address now with links to public access and to
Yes.
some other television programs, QTV, and I think there's a bogus link, if it's still up there, to the Common Man. He needs all the help he can get. He's gratefully loaned his head to this program so he can keep abreast of the news. And we want to thank you for that, Common. And of course, we have many things to talk about, Fred, so we might as well get right into it. But of course, first we should tell them what the email address is if any of your girlfriends want to write you any love letters, and they can send it to the Old Cow, COW at discover-net.net.
I'm married to Betty, and Betty been a wonderful wife.
Well, that's good.
I love her.
But in the meantime, if anyone wants to write any email to Fred, they can address it to COWS at discover-net.net. And our homepage address, for those who would like to check the homepage out, it's very colorful, Fred. I think we're going to win some awards with that homepage. And of course, you're mentioned in there several times on the homepage, and we've got many wonderful links to other parts of the internet all over the world. And that's http://members.tripod.com/tilde Flavin, Flavin. And of course,
What's that?
that's Flavin Pop. And that's
Flavin looks like water.
FLAVIN.
It doesn't look like any pop at all.
Well, Fred, that's because you haven't been drinking it since you've been
I know, I haven't been drunk any of it. I wouldn't drink that stuff.
Well, you know, there's only 2 places you can get it, Fred.
I know, and both of them have gone out of business. They couldn't sell any.
One of them is down there at the corner of
And he's gone out of business 6 months ago.
Ferry and Menominee.
Yeah, he's not
That's
there
our
anymore.
wholesaler. Yeah,
He's not there anymore.
that's
He
a
went
whole-
out of business.
wholesale retail. And then the other place is, Fred, at Finer Funeral Homes.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Finer Funeral Home, Baloney.
And of course, you can either have it served at your
You
at
can't
your favorite
get
funeral.
any of them to sell any.
Now they serve it as a punch during the funeral.
Yeah, they do.
And then, of course, on the other end of the thing, they use it as a alternative for formaldehyde for embalming.
Yeah.
So it has many, many uses, Fred, and scientists work day and night trying to figure out all the different ways that they can use Flavin Pop, and they've come up with.
And they haven't found one yet that they can use Flavin Pop.
And like it says on the homepage, it builds strong bodies 12 ways. And because they found 12 different ways that it'll build strong bodies.
Yeah, how? How is that? Name one of them.
Well, the first one is it's used as an alternative for formaldehyde. If that doesn't build a strong body, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
All right. And next week we'll give you another one. For the next 11 weeks we'll give you one reason why it builds strong bodies 12 ways.
Got Roy Roger top weapon there too.
Okay, Roy, are you going to get any of those addresses up there for
got a call on.
You're going to get any of those addresses up there for our adoring public there, Roy?
There's one call.
Hopefully, Roy will get those addresses up there. Phone numbers and email and the homepage address for those computer nuts out there. All right, Fred, first of all, we got county recycling grant to help cover expenses for appliance disposal. That's coming up right around the corner for those of you who have those gas stoves, electric stoves, refrigerators, the old ice boxes from the 30s. You remember those, Fred? The iceman would come in the back door and carry the 50-pound or 25-pound block of ice and drop it right in your ice pan, and that would keep your refrigeration going for several days.
Yeah.
I remember Grandma had one of those.
We had one of them too.
Now, what I can't remember, though, is how long the ice would last in the summertime.
I don't remember that.
Probably not very long.
I do know that we had a pan under there to catch the water.
Of course, you know, though, that there was millionaires made just delivering ice to all the ice boxes around the neighborhood. And, of course, in some of these smaller towns, it was usually one person that might sell coal and sell ice and maybe a few other things there.
Okay, got anything interesting to read
there? In
there?
the town I lived in, Fred, it was a coal and an ice company, and those guys made millions off of just making and selling ice, and of course delivering it. So right here, Fred, the county recycling grant to help cover expenses for appliance disposal, including those old ice boxes, Fred. And that's for dehumidifiers, clothes washers, dryers, air conditioners, dishwashers, freezers, furnaces, humidifiers, microwave ovens, refrigerator stoves, and water heaters.
Yes.
So it's your chance to get rid of all these at a very modest price, because they are, I guess, being diverted now from the landfills, and it's getting harder to dispose of them. And that's from the Eau Claire County Recycling Program is going to be doing that through a grant from the Department of Natural Resources. And that's coming up on Saturday, October 18th. It's just one day from 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, so it doesn't give you much time, about 6 hours to get rid of those. And the collection will occur at 3 locations: the County Highway Shop in Altoona, the County Highway Shop in Foster, and the Bridge Creek Transfer Station on Highway 27. And if you want to know more about that, or write down the phone number and tape it to that old refrigerator or stove you got on the back porch, or you're looking for a place to get rid of it, that number is 839-6190. You'll be able 839-6190, and you'll be able to get rid of all those things there.
Yes.
Okay there, well now, I guess Roy says there's our addresses on the screen there now.
Yeah.
I'm looking in the old monitor. Of course, we've got our, the fine folks at Flavin donated this here.
Yeah.
And that's their way of showing their support to the Chippewa Valley.
Yeah.
And for the many, many years that they've gotten money back from all the Flavin Pop
all the Flavin Pop, they didn't sell a bottle yet.
That they've sold down there at the corner of Mitchell,
they didn't sell any there because that guy's out of business for 6 months already.
Well, that's the wholesale distribution center, Fred.
Yeah, and it's closed.
Okay, Fred. State extremist groups on the rise, report says. It goes on to tell about all the extremist groups here in Wisconsin. Of course, those of you probably saw the Leader telegram yesterday talking about one of those extremists down there in Mondovi that was arrested on the sidewalk, and they found a couple of firecrackers at his house and a couple of what he said were legal
machine guns,
legal weapons. But it talks about quite a few groups here. 6 militia groups identified were, and I'm surprised that this is coming from a leftist newspaper, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. I'm surprised that they talked about the leftist militia in here. The 6 militia groups that were identified in Wisconsin were the Black Panthers militia, and of course that's McGee down there in Milwaukee that
Yes.
threatened to start blowing up buildings and stuff
Right.
if he didn't get his way. And then there's the Wisconsin Christian Freeman Militia out of Milwaukee, the Minuteman Militia from Slinger, the Waupaca County Militia from Manawa, the Family Farm Preservation Society from Tigerton. That's part of the old
Yeah.
Posse Comitatus group, I think. And the Free Militia in an unspecified location. That's probably two guys sitting around smoking rolled up cigarettes out in the woods, polishing their 12-gauge shotguns, Fred.
Yeah.
Probably in their 50s. And that's what most of these groups are. All together, you probably put these 6 militia groups together and it wouldn't cover more than 50 people. And of course, then there's common law courts were reported in 12 counties, identical to those named in the Center's 1996 report. And other state groups named as possible extremist groups are the John Birch Society from Appleton.
John Birch Society is not an extremist group.
Well, what I tell you, Fred, this is written up by the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Yeah.
So what do you expect? Other groups were the John Birch Society Tax Reform Immediately. So I guess if you're for tax reform, you're an extremist now.
Yeah.
U.S. Taxpayers Party from Dousman, Family Action Association from Shawano, and We the People from Shawano, and Citizens for Law Reform in an unspecified locale. That's probably another one of those two people in front of a computer deals, Fred. So altogether, this state extremist groups on the rise probably put the whole bunch together and ain't more than 50, 60 people. But it makes for good print and for something that somebody to read before they use it to wrap their fish.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've had somebody that's been waiting very, very patiently on line one, so we better take that call, and then we're going to go to Fred, has his first article there. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good.
Well, that's glad to hear. So what's up tonight?
You?
All right.
You're awesome.
Well, thank you.
And,
What about Fred?
yeah, Fred,
Hello there.
I wrote last week. Are you okay from that?
Fred did what?
You know, he was in the hospital last week.
He was.
I was there 2 weeks ago, too.
Whatever.
Sacred Heart Hospital.
Yeah.
Up,
You okay, dude?
up on the rehab floor, the 9th floor.
Oh,
Okay, so what's your statement tonight?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to watch SummerSlam, and you guys are invited over.
Is that the wrestling match?
Yeah.
Of course, not many people know this, but Fred was in professional wrestling back in the 50s. Him and Vern Gagne started the Vern Gagne School of Wrestling over in Minneapolis, St. Paul many years ago. He perfected the
No, I didn't.
body slam and the
I
headlock.
did.
That
I
was
did.
perfected by Fred back in the
I
early
did.
50s.
Yeah.
Of course, conditions were a lot tougher back then, though, Fred.
Yes, I know. They actually wrestled.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, Fred, what do you got there?
On Senators Feingold and Cole support partial birth abortion. And this was on March 20th, 97. The U.S. House of Representatives voted via veto, proof margin 295 to 136 to ban the partial birth abortion. Likewise, on the 20th, May 97, the Senate voted to pass the ban, but fell 3 votes short of the veto majority sought by the president, the supporters of the ban. And President Ron Kine, after saying he would support he evidently had not voted for the ban, but put his radical views and voted for the ban.
Okay, Roy, you're going to have to correct that tripod there. There's no space in between there. They won't be able to get there if they put a space in there.
Suzanne Armacost, the legislative director of Wisconsin Right to Life, said of vote to ban the procedure must come as a shock to Representative Ron Kind's design how out of psyche is with the people of the 3rd Congressional District when it comes to protecting on vulnerable, unborn human life.
So in everyday modern English, what's that mean?
Well, he voted for it. He voted to oppose the ban.
That was unusual for him. He's
Yeah.
he's pro-abortion, isn't he?
Yes.
I remember right here in these studios, well, next door in the other larger studio, I asked him that when he was running for election against Harsdorf,
Yes.
and he said he would have to look at that, but he was pretty much talking pro-abortion then.
Yeah.
But he knows probably which side the bread's buttered on in the 3rd District, and the 3rd Congressional District's a heavily pro-life and pro-Catholic district, Fred, and he can't go against too many of those votes or he won't be in there. All right there, Freddie boy. Well, here's something from Pat Buchanan. It's called Insights, Opinions, and Views, and Pat Buchanan's from the New York Post. They allow him to write a column there. Besides, he's back on Crossfire again, I think, isn't he?
He's, I don't know. I wasn't able to see him.
Well, anyway, and
How Stands the Republic? That's an article by Pat Buchanan.
okay, well, we've got an article right here, Fred.
Yeah.
It tells about Republicans investigating the Clinton scandals may be missing one of the biggest of all. According to ABC's Nightline, Mexico's drug cartels, in anticipation of NAFTA in 1993, bought up businesses all along the U.S. border on the U.S. side. Our drug enforcement agency, that's the DEA, the major federal agency that has jurisdiction over importing and smuggling of drugs into this country and then nabbing people that are drug dealers. Our drug enforcement agency knew the cartels had plans to use these companies as fronts to smuggle drugs into the U.S., but when the DEA informed the Clinton administration, it was told to shut up. And this comes from ABC source Phil Jordan, recently retired DEA intelligence chief. So this isn't just some rumor on a street corner down in Laredo, Texas, Fred.
Yes.
This is from an intelligence chief, Phil Jordan, recently retired, telling that the Clintons helped cover up the fact that the Mexican cartels on the Mexican side of the border were buying businesses right across the border, so that when the doors were wide open for NAFTA for
Yes.
the semis and all the trucks and trains and all the traffic across the border, that they knew that our government didn't have enough manpower to check all these sources.
Yeah.
They knew that the doors would be flung wide open. They started buying up their spots so that they could offload on the United States side and then reload or redo that stuff. And let's get back on the air here, Roy. Reload and redo that stuff and then repackage it and ship it all around the United States. So now, 4 years later, we're finding out that post-NAFTA, Mexico quickly became the port of entry for 70% of the cocaine entering the United States. So now all Colombia has to do is get the drugs
To Mexico.
in Peru, and all the cocaine-producing countries just have to get it to Mexico, and then they're home free. 70% of it now is entering the United States through Mexico. No wonder the cartels are pro-free trade and open borders, as the Wall Street Journal says. So there you have it, Fred. NAFTA was just a cover for the big drug cartels to smuggle in their billions of dollars worth of cocaine to get on the streets so that all the people in the inner cities could smoke their crack cocaine and kill each other over it, fighting over drug turf.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi there.
Hello.
Guess what? You know, I saw you guys talking about DEA and shit. I saw Fred smoking a bowl, dude. I saw him doing it. DEA is gonna find out. He's on the list, man.
What do you think about that, Fred?
It's not true.
That's what I thought. Okay, so there you have it. Mexico, the drug cartels, they're getting very powerful, Fred. They're actually buying off DEA agents, county prosecutors along the border, sheriff's departments are being bought off so that they have these so they can get these windows into the United States, these corridors where they have protection. So if you got a sheriff and maybe 5 deputies in a county down there along the Mexican border on the American side, all they got to do is bribe off the right people, and they're going to turn the other way and let that pipeline get through into the United States so it can get into the veins and lungs and bloodstreams of America's youth, and eventually cause all the havoc it has caused in this country, Fred, including filling up all the prisons and hospitals and mental institutions and nursing homes with the victims of this drug epidemic that we have in this country, Fred. Okay, Freddie boy, so I've been studying this budget deal that's coming down in Washington, Fred.
You have?
And you know, there's been a lot of praise about how this budget is going to help a lot of people. And they're going to start balancing the budget. Of course, they need to have a certain amount of tax dollars rolling in every year to balance the budget within their guidelines. But Phil Gramm now is kind of backing off, saying that this budget deal might not work.
No, it's not going to work. You're right.
Phil Gramm says this is a budget deal as a hound that just won't hunt. And he says a vote for this budget is a vote for higher taxes in the long run, and I think in 18 months everyone will realize it was a sham. So now they're telling us, Fred.
Yes.
Just on the verge of getting the thing, the House and the Senate agreeing to it and getting it on the President's desk and him signing it, now they're telling us that there could be some flaws in it. But on the other hand, the Republican National Committee chief, Jim Nicholson, who replaced Haley Barbour, he says that he's asking Clinton, who's rich in America? Clinton says the GOP gives teachers, mechanics, and construction workers too much tax relief. And according to the Heritage Foundation study, shows that by Clinton's definition, the following people are too rich to deserve the tax cuts proposed by the GOP in this tax relief package that's being pushed in the Congress. According to this report, the Heritage Foundation says the top 20% of income earners, those with household incomes of more than $56,200 per year, are rich, according to Bill Clinton. In an effort to convince Americans that Republicans' tax cuts are mainly for the wealthy, Clinton has defined middle income in America as making people wealthy. Nicholson, GOP tax cuts were designed to favor middle-income taxpayers, teachers, construction workers, repairmen and women, and millions of other Americans who work hard for their paychecks. So here's a list of people that Clinton will consider to be too rich, quote unquote,
including himself,
to deserve tax cuts. Here they are. 1.7 million union members are too rich to get tax cuts. They have an average of $1,150 in capital gains income. Now there'll be some capital gains cuts, so these 1.7 million union members won't be eligible for it. 2.4 million school teachers, the backbone and the blood stream, the blood life of the Clinton election,
Democratic Party,
and the elections of a lot of liberal Democrats. 2.4 million of these school teachers will not be eligible for these tax cuts.
Yes.
They have an average of $970 in capital gains income. Another big group, 8.1 million federal, state, and local government workers, most of them union, and they average $1,160 in capital gains income. They won't be eligible.
Yes.
And 4.2 million mechanics, repairmen, and construction workers with an average of $1,200 in capital gains income won't be eligible. Now, if you want to calculate your own income tax relief, you can go to http://www.senate.gov/SRC, and there's a tax calculator in there that you can plug in your numbers, and it allows taxpayers to find out exactly how much they stand to save under the GOP Taxpayer Relief Act.
Yes.
So it's www.senate.gov/SRC, and that will take you to that tax calculator, and it'll let you figure out what your savings will be. But Clinton says that these, well, about 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, almost 17 million Americans won't be eligible because Clinton says they're too rich.
Yes.
I don't know, you talk to a school teacher and they say they don't make enough.
Yes.
Okay, Fred, we're going to take a call here, but what do you got there?
Well, I have from the Wanderer, which is a Catholic newspaper printed in St. Paul, July 17, 97. Another anniversary of the Declaration of Independence passes. It's fair to ask, what would the men of 76 think of us? While they were surely awed by America's size, wealth, power, I expect they will be unimpressed with our leaders and alarmed at our course. The independence they won at an immense sacrifice was, after all, an economic as well as a political independence. Yet our leaders deliberately increasing our dependence upon global economy, total trade, less than 1/10 of the national product for generations is now 23%, expected to reach 36% by the year 2010.
Well, it sounds like that's rolling right around the corner. We got a call there, Roy? All right. Roy says we have a call on line 1, so go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Okay, roll.
Go ahead.
Look.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay, good.
Speak. 3, 2, 1. Okay, you had your chance. All right, Fred. Well, as Fred, as you know, the state or the county, the congressional districts and the state party all had their caucuses here in the last few months.
Yes.
And from what I understand, pretty much the pro-life plank was agreed to. The partial birth abortion
Was opposed?
was opposing of that was agreed to. Pretty much everything that the Eau Claire County Party put up in their
Right.
proposals to be approved by the 3rd District and the state party were all agreed to, 100% up and down the line.
Right.
But there's a small minority faction in the county that just won't let a dead dog lie. They want to keep putting it on life support systems and keep it alive. And so they came out with an underground newspaper called the Mainstream Report. And it came out about the same time as here's the Eau Claire County Republican official newspaper, and this is called the Mainstream Report. I have a photocopy of it, but this one here is the official one. This one here is from a radical extremist group within the county that keeps rattling their broken off saber. But anyway, what we have here is the Mainstream Report, issue number 1, issued in June of '97. It states here, now is the time to come to the aid of your party. We are a group of mainstream Republicans who are very concerned about the direction our county Republican Party has taken. Control of the party has been seized by the religious right. They are a well-organized group consisting primarily of congregation members from a few fundamentalist churches. Although they represent a minority group in the community, they have been able to mobilize most of their membership to overwhelm the Republican caucus and assume party control. Boy, isn't that scary wording, Fred?
Yes.
I see you shaking over there. The impact of this power shift should be recognized. The religious right now has better ability to support candidates sympathetic to their cause. These politicians will then sponsor and pass legislation favorable to their religious right. In this way, a minority group can control the political process at state and federal
that's a majority
levels.
group, not a minority group.
The 1996 and 97 Eau Claire County Republican caucuses were viewed by many thinking Republicans as divisive, mean-spirited, and orchestrated to further extreme views on single issues. This has turned some folks off to our party. I suppose mainly the folks that are turned off are the Democrats that are trying to take over the Republican Party. The question raised is what, if anything, can be done to counter the destructiveness witnessed. A movement has been initiated to welcome thinking folks who oppose extremism and look to embrace a broad tent approach. True mainstream Republicanism. Welcome to the first edition. This newsletter was established by a group who believes in separation of church and state and in the power of the majority. The primary goal of this newsletter is to increase political awareness and evoke increasing participation in the local political process. In addition, politicians and legislation that may not agree with traditional Republican values will be identified. This newsletter will be published quarterly and will include federal, state, county, and city political information. This first issue will identify our legislators. Further issues will provide more information about politicians and legislation. Additional information such as editorials, informational articles, campaign activities, and fundraising announcements may also be included. So I guess along with their newsletter, Fred, they had a picnic to see what their strength was. And it was held June 18th at Lake Altoona Park. And of the 20 people that showed up, I guess 6 of them were from this so-called right-wing radical bunch that infiltrated to see what's going on. So only 14 of their people showed up there. So that doesn't sound like any majority to me.
No.
The Eau Claire County Republican Party just by itself is the largest county Republican Party in the state with close to 700, or if not over 700 members now.
Yes.
So you've got a hardcore radical left-wing group, minority, very, very far in the minority, about 1% of the party group, maybe 2% at the most, that is stirring up trouble and calling the majority all kinds of names and trying to paint them as some kind of radicals. But everything that was voted on at the Eau Claire County Party was once again approved at the 3rd District Party, which encompasses over 500,000 people in the 3rd Congressional District of Wisconsin. And then everything there was approved at the state party, which is over 5 million, represents over 5 million people in this state.
Yes.
And they agreed to the same exact things that the county party agreed to and the 3rd District Party agreed to.
And I understand that the state convention, that group you're speaking of, was rather quiet.
Yeah, I heard they didn't have enough people there to even mount any kind of offensive.
Right.
It was just a radical minority of atheists, pro-homosexual people, and homosexuals,
Yes.
and people that do not represent the mainstream in our country.
I know it.
Last time I read statistics, the homosexuality is only embraced by about 1 to 3% of the nation. That is not mainstream, Fred. That is an extremist group. Another a group that another outfit,
Planned Parenthood.
they do not agree in the pro-life issue. Well, the pro-life stand is overwhelmingly accepted in this state, Fred. It is a majority opinion in this state. So once again, this group is in an extreme radical opposition to that. Another one is the right to keep and bear arms. I'm sure this group would like to take away that right. Well, in Wisconsin, where there's hundreds of thousands of hunters and people that believe in protecting themselves, and gun collectors would say that this group is a radical minority group in that area too, Fred. The separation of church and state. There's no way that you can separate church and state. Especially in a state that is, if you're not Catholic, you're Lutheran, Fred.
You're right.
And if you're not Catholic or Lutheran, you're one of the other ones. It's about 95% Christian in this state.
Could be a Baptist.
And then there's a couple percentages.
And there's the church on 9th Avenue.
But you know, Fred, if you took a survey of the over 700 people in the Eau Claire County Republican Party, you'd find out there's many Catholics, many Lutherans. There's Jewish people involved. There's Baptists, there's Pentecostals.
Yes.
There's just about every denomination that you can think of involved, Fred. But this radical minority group would have you believe otherwise, Fred. And so they don't really have much ground to stand on, so they bring up some things like the Cronkite letter. Walter Cronkite wrote a letter talking about politics and the Christian coalition.
I wouldn't favor any of that Cronkite letter.
Okay, Fred, here's what this radical group is saying the Eau Claire County Republican Party is made up of. and what they consider organizations believed to be associated with the religious right. The American Family Association.
Right.
Well, I know from my experience with the American Family Association, what they've mainly zeroed in on is some of the pornography and trash that's on television,
yes.
Fred, and they're pointing out that...
and he supported a group in Connecticut, and they won their case.
Now, the Bradley Foundation, I don't know what that is, unless that's something down in Milwaukee. I've never heard of that group. Christian Coalition has over 1.5 million members, and they help distribute leaflets on candidates. They've helped pro-life and pro-abortion candidates in the past, much to the chagrin of some Christians, but the Christian Coalition is made up of not only Christians, but Jews and Catholics and some people that don't believe in anything. But it's mainly Christian Coalition, but that's another group they say is on the religious right. That's scary, the scary religious right there. Citizens for Quality Education. Well, I think I know about the local group, Fred. I think it's a handful of about 5 people meeting in one of the churches here in town that just put out information on what's going on in the educational area, homeschooling, yes. And what's going on about the Eau Claire School District. And
some of these people are in with the educational bureaucracy that we have that runs our schools.
And they like to point out the extravagant lifestyle of the rich and famous running the school system in this area, like our superintendent. Family Research Institute, now that's Marvin Munyon out of Madison, isn't it?
Yeah.
They deal with family issues. First Breath Alliance, I think that's a pro-life group. John Birch Society, Fred, boy, there's a scary group.
Yeah, there's a good organization.
Yep, they put out a lot of good literature.
Gonna have good literature.
Don't you have their magazine right there,
yeah,
Fred?
I got.
Why don't you hold up that radical right-wing magazine there, Fred? There it is. There's that scary magazine. There it is. Ooh, that's scary. Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Educating for Global Control.
Okay, another one's Right to Life, Fred. Well, there's several thousand, probably close to 100,000 members of Right to Life right in Wisconsin.
Yes.
In the Right to Life movement.
Yes.
I'm sure there's millions that whenever they have their marches, they have large national marches, and basically Right to Life just stands for they're pro-life.
Right.
But here they're saying they're one of that scary religious right. And then tied in with that article, it was in the newspaper that I read earlier, some of the militia and patriot groups, which if you put the whole bunch together would probably add up to about 40 to 60 people statewide.
You might have 100.
So they want to scare you with these groups here, but I'm familiar with several of these groups, and I haven't seen them polishing their AK-47s and getting ready for war or to kill off these people here that are so scared of them. But anyway, you have to have an enemy and you have to have somebody to fear to put out propaganda like this. This is the kind of propaganda that Hitler put out, and eventually it culminated in the murder of, when you add up everyone, probably close to 10 million people, including the Jews, gypsies, communists, and other people that were rounded up and put into the archipelagos in Europe during World War II, and eventually eliminated one way or another. But you have to scare people with this kind of rhetoric if you're going to build some kind of movement. But so they have a plea for help here. Please help us spread the word about our organization. Primarily, the goals of this newsletter is to increase political awareness and evoke increasing participation in the political process. We believe that the majority does not support what the religious right has done to the Republican Party, and we need your help to redirect our county Republican Party back toward the mainstream. If you know of anyone interested in local politics with similar beliefs, please contact us with their name and address, or have them contact directly at the address or phone numbers listed below. This newsletter is an entirely voluntary operation run by the contributions of its members. We need volunteers to help in our database management, filing, and writing. So their database is they're going to build a list of names of their enemy, Fred. I guess it's going to be pretty big in this area. It's probably going to be close to 700 people that belong to the Republican Party, because they all seem to be marching in lockstep along with the 3rd Congressional District, along with the state party, along with our governor. All right, so how to contact the Mainstream Report. This newsletter is produced and edited by John Snyder, somebody named Hanson, and Doug Knight, with contributions from concerned mainstream Republicans. And we can be reached at Mainstream Report, blah, 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 Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So there you have it, Fred.
Yes.
And probably this whole group,
9 months.
this whole group will probably die with the same way that the Doug Knight / Steve Gunderson movement finally died in the 3rd Congressional District, and he had to give up that post here in the last election cycle when the handwriting was put on the wall and says, Doug Knight, we no longer want you as our 3rd Congressional District chairman. And so he had to step down, and so he needs some kind of a soapbox now to push his anti-Christian bigotry and racism. So there it is in the Mainstream Report. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I know it's Nick, man.
Pardon?
I got it, Nick, man.
So there you have it, Fred. So if you want to find out what's really going on in the Eau Claire County area with the Republican Party, read the Eau Claire County Republican. That is the bona fide official paper of the party, and it tells about all the fine Republicans now that are elected to office. People like Chuck Schaefer, state representative from the 68th District. Rob Krybeck, state representative Republican from the 93rd District. I think
How about the other one?
is it 93rd he's in? Dave Zine, 23rd District state senator.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you also have Tom Sikora from
Yes, very good man.
from the Chippewa Falls area.
You also got another guy who beat Plumbon.
And you got Zukowski from the on
Yes.
the east side. So Eau Claire now is pretty much surrounded by Republican representatives, except Rod Moen, and he's got 1 foot out of office, and he's on his way out anyway. So now this radical right-wing bunch is the ones that put all these people in because they marched in lockstep, the Eau Claire and the Chippewa County Republican parties, to put these guys in office, Fred. So this small minority of about 14 people must be calling Dave Zine, Rob Krybeck, Tom Schaefer, is it Tom Schaefer? I forget myself here.
Tom Sikora.
Chuck Schaefer, Tom Sikora, Dave Zine, Rob Krybeck, and Bob Zukowski. They all must be a part of that radical right too, because they've been well received and well supported in this area for many, many years, Fred.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm one of the members of the Eau Claire Republican Party. And it's a good organization we got going here. We got a lot of good fellas working for us, and they're all trying hard to do their best, you know.
Yeah, there's about 700. It's the biggest county party in the state. We're bigger than the Milwaukee County Party.
Well, Chippewa Valley's one of the nicer part of the state, so I'd rather be up here.
All right, well, there you have it, Fred. Speaking of good Republicans, Fred, we're going to talk about Fred Thompson here in a minute, but what do you got there first?
Continued immigration means the end of the GOP, and this is from the Wanderer in the July 17th issue, and it talks about this year's well-known fact that Republicans in Congress have put the immigration issues on the legislative back burner. While the Republicans last year pushed through laws that denied welfare to immigrants that sought to control the borders, this year they're back steadily away from and backtrack further steps towards immigration reform. And this is going to be the thing that's going to defeat the party.
Immigration problem?
Yes.
Well, you've seen how they came against Pete Wilson out there. He's governor of California. You know why he's against all this illegal immigration? Because it affects the whole state.
Yes, I know it.
The state's bankrupt.
I know it.
If it wasn't for the millions upon millions of federal dollars that are coming in to keep it propped up. But then you see it on the news where the police are beating some illegal immigrant that's running down the freeway or running across the freeway with cars zipping by at 70 miles an hour. That's all you see about the illegal immigrants. But it's more than that. It goes a lot deeper than some rogue cop hitting an immigrant too hard. It ends up with Mexicans being held hostage in New York City and being forced to sell trinkets on the subway system in New York City, and then bring the money back to their slave masters. And it's about female Mexican prostitutes that are brought into this country to sell their wares, and all their money goes to their Mexican pimps.
The anti-smoking crusade also is written up by Joe Sobran.
Okay, all right. It's also about the illegal immigrants smuggling heroin and cocaine across the borders.
Yes.
And it's about the unscrupulous characters that are getting paid up to $2,000 a head to smuggle these illegal aliens across and giving them fake papers to get them into this country. And it's about some of those unscrupulous characters abandoning some of those illegal aliens along the highways and byways, and some of them have actually suffocated in the back of pickup trucks and stuff, where they've been 10, 15 of them been shoved in a pickup truck, not enough room to breathe, and they've found them dead in boxcars, pickup trucks, and vans along the roads there. There's been shootouts with illegal aliens coming across, Fred. It's a major problem. Major problem down there. It's breaking states like Florida and Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico. It's hurting all of their systems, or all of their welfare systems and their healthcare systems are being taxed to the maximum to try and deal with this problem.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
Go ahead, I can hear you.
Hello?
Oh.
Yep. You got to speak into your phone and.
Hello?
Okay there. All right, Freddie. So, the man of the hour out there in Washington, D.C. right now is Fred Thompson, senator from Tennessee, star of The Hunt for Red October and Die Hard 2. Now he's a U.S. senator. He was also in the Watergate hearings as a young lawyer. He was represented the Republican. He was a Republican on the Republican Council in 1973. He asked the famous question: were President Nixon's conversations taped? And of course, that was the beginning of the end for the Nixon administration. Now here, 24 years later, he's in the exact same conference room, the same hearings room, holding hearings again. This time, hearings into the illegal contributions and campaign. Finance hijinks of the mostly of the Clinton administration during the '96 election cycle. And of course, to top it all off, Fred, he's heavily being looked at as the year 2000 as a very serious presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
The one and only Fred Thompson from Tennessee. And he's going to get a lot of mileage out of these hearings here. Hopefully they're going to get to the bottom of
I watched them on C-SPAN, having the hearings on there.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Well, so far, some of the things he said was pretty good.
Okay, I think Roy Rogers Hoff, great-great-grandson of Hopalong Cassidy, says there's a call on line one. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Chuck Stick, Fred, how you doing?
All right.
Hear me all right?
Sure.
Yeah, you're going to just have to turn your TV down, you'll be fine.
Okay, one sec. Boys, get that TV. Yes, I got a question for you guys. What are you guys thinking about the legalization of marijuana here in the United States? I mean, it's a pertinent issue, and I think we should address it, you know? I mean, it's something to talk about.
Okay, well, thanks for that question, and we'll ask Fred. What do you think about that marijuana deal, Fred?
I don't think it should be approved.
Well, you know, it seems like every year it gets drug out and brought before the public, and there's a big push on by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws and some of the pot-smoking congressmen in Washington and some of your state legislators who are pro-marijuana, and they've got a movement here in Wisconsin to legalize it in the guise of legalizing hemp because of all the great things that you can do with hemp rope and hemp cloth and all the many different things that can be made out of hemp. Well, that's one thing, industrial hemp that has no hallucinogenic value. That kind of hemp is different than the cannabis sativa that people use to smoke, to get high on. They're two separate issues altogether. Industrial hemp has been around probably as long as man has. They've been using hemp fibers to make
rope,
clothing and rope, and it was used during World War II. There was farmers all across the Midwest grew hemp for the war effort.
Yeah.
But that's a different kind of hemp. The hemp that this guy's probably talking about is kind you get high on, and we don't need to be introducing another drug into society legally that is going to cause problems like tobacco and alcohol and
Yes.
and many of the other drugs that are on the market have already done, cocaine and some illegal and some not. But we've already got a major drug epidemic, abusive drug epidemic going on in this country. Has caused the death and
Right.
the death and incarceration and of many thousands of people over the years, Fred, and it's also
Yes.
caused many other family problems and just one problem after another with it. It's been proven to cause
Okay.
severe problems with, you just can't use it when you're out there driving either. You know that, Fred?
I know it.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you guys doing tonight?
All right.
All right, yeah, about that marijuana, I agree it shouldn't be legalized because you got all those young fellas out there smoking their dope and they're just doing dumb stuff out there, you know? They get high and they don't know what they're doing, and it's just going to cause more troubles if we legalize it than if we don't. I don't know if you agree with me. You agree with me there, Fred?
Yes, I certainly do.
Well, you know, it's the old way of doing it. It's called the old school way of doing it. And I feel that if we let liberals get in there, everything's just going to start to fall apart. You know, take a look at Clinton. He doesn't know his right from his left. He's dumber than a box of rocks. You ask me, you should have got old, you know, fancy pants, you know, what's his face? Whatever.
Well, since Clinton came to power, the use of marijuana amongst the youth has increased 150%. We've got an epidemic amongst kids again with marijuana, thanks to Clinton and his famous line, I puffed on it, but I didn't inhale.
Well, that's got to be the dumbest thing to say, I think, and that's got to be the biggest lie, I think, ever. You know?
Right.
But the thing is back when Bill Clinton, young man Bill Clinton in his 20s, did that puffing, that marijuana back then was very weak compared to the hybrid stuff that's on the market now, and the stuff that's out there now is enough to cause people to have major breaks with reality.
Oh, yeah.
Psychologically, the stuff is very, very potent. And it's not like it was in the 60s and 70s. It's a different breed of marijuana altogether. It's very potent.
Well, I don't think it will ever be passed. At least while we have a Republican Congress in the you know, Republican representative and Senate and the Congress, I don't think we'll ever have to worry about it getting passed as a legalized drug. And that's one thing we need more of are the Republicans, because they're more responsible and they take their job a little bit more seriously than the liberals do. Right, Fred?
Right.
Well, if you look around Eau Claire and Wisconsin, we already have a major problem with alcohol and tobacco.
Well, alcohol is a different story. You know, it's more socially accepted. That's why everybody does it. You know, you can't bring back prohibition or whatever. It just won't work. And Wisconsin has a lot of alcoholics in the state. It's one of the worst in the country.
Yeah, it keeps them breweries flowing down there, doesn't it?
Well, it gives somebody a job though too. You got to think also.
Yep. It keeps the courthouses full on Monday morning.
That's true. You get a lot of revenue through that.
Yeah, it's about $1,000 there the first time around, plus all the schooling and all that stuff. And you got to get special licenses, and you got to go through the schooling, and you got to get a big fine, and you can't drive.
Yes.
And it's big bucks there for the court system.
Well, you fellas enjoy your night now.
All right, okay,
Thank you.
thanks for calling in there. You know, Fred, we just don't need another drug out there. Look at all the damage tobacco's done, and we discovered and exposed right here on this show many years ago about how the state was financing the growing of tobacco in this state.
Yes.
And now they almost I'm sure in some way or another they're subsidizing the breweries and all that stuff.
Yes.
So do you think we ought to be subsidizing marijuana
No.
now and get that
No.
in there in the mix too?
No.
Have a bunch of potheads on every street corner?
No.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, you had said that last year I've been watching your show. You said Des Moines had become a big drug problem. How's that situation down there now?
Who did?
You guys had both said that Des Moines had become a big drug problem, that in Iowa they had big drug problems down there. How's that whole situation?
Oh, with the crack cocaine down
Oh,
in
the crack they got down there.
yeah, in Des Moines, Iowa, I guess they're having major problems with the East and the West Coast gang coming there fighting over
Into Iowa even, huh?
yeah, and fighting over turf and murdering people and people getting beat up and drive-by shootings right there in Iowa, right in the middle of the cornfields. It's just a very serious problem going on down there.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. That's moving in too close to Wisconsin.
We've got remnants of some of the West Coast gangs and Chicago gangs and Minneapolis, St. Paul, Milwaukee gangs right here in Eau Claire.
Is this your time the show's on at all times now? You guys used to be on there in the afternoon.
The off week we're on at 2 in the afternoon. The rerun of this show will be on at 2 next Monday.
Fred's getting a little tired, it looks like. I've seen him yawning over there a little bit.
Well, he just got back from a 2.5-week engagement down at Sacred Heart Hospital. He's been doing some summer stock down there, and he's been on the stage down there, and he's just kind of wore out.
Congratulations, Fred.
Thank you.
That's good.
Well, thanks for calling in and pointing that out there. But yeah, we do have a major gang problem right here in Eau Claire, but they don't like to talk. The city fathers don't like to talk about it because they're all for pushing Eau Claire as one of the safest places in the country to live, and it is pretty safe. But we do have a smoldering right below the surface there. We do have some gang problems amongst the Asian gangs, and we have some black gangs that are moving into town, and the Caucasian gangs and mixed gangs and of all three races, and they're doing some dealings back and forth with Minneapolis, St. Paul, Milwaukee mainly, and it's causing some problems, and it was inevitable that it'd get here, but hopefully the law enforcement agencies are keeping a lid on it and stopping it in its tracks wherever they can. What do you got there, Fred?
A sixth grader was recently expelled in Corrigan, Texas for attacking a dozen classmates with a hypodermic needle. In Washington, D.C., principal and the teacher were suspended for 9 unusual fourth graders allegedly engaged in sexual activity together in an empty classroom.
Huh.
A male 10th grader was charged in Cumberland County, New Jersey, with murder for beating the death of a female classmate. Janitors found the victim's body in the locker.
Huh. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey there, guys. Talking about marijuana, huh? What do you really know about marijuana?
Well, I'll tell you there, Fred. I know one thing.
Yes.
The school system can build all the high schools they want and grade schools, and now they want 40. I think one of the figures I'm looking at here from back in March was $45 million, and that referendum's coming up right around the corner, Fred. They're quietly rolling out their vote for the referendum. Of course, they're going to run it on a Saturday again when a lot of people are out of town enjoying their cabins or whatever. So they're going to try and sneak one past us again. Last time they said, give us $27 million, we won't bother you. Here just a few years later, they're wanting upwards of $45 million for this extravagant, out-of-control, liberation theologist type superintendent and school system we have in this area here. They think that they're going to be the savior of the youth by building all these monolithic school systems. When the whole thing could be hooked up on the internet, and you wouldn't need more than one building for the whole school system. And of course, they got their goo-goo eyes on tearing down the old administration building right up here, the old Memorial High School. They got their big old goo-goo eyes on tearing that down and building some kind of big monolith there too. So watch for that coming down the pike. Go ahead, caller. You're the last call.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. What's up?
Just like to say a couple things about marijuana, because I don't know. I think you guys really don't know what you're talking about. Marijuana is not bad.
Listen, Fred was around when Cab Calloway was singing about reefer out there in New York City, right, Fred?
Yes.
He knows all about it.
Yeah, and here in the New American Magazine, they have a male computer teacher in Chicago.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, what's up?
Not much.
I want to talk to you about some marijuana, too.
Turn your TV down. You got about 2 seconds.
Oh, did you get to smoke a little grass, Chuck?
Well, all I'll say is I was a baby boomer. What about you, Fred? Did somebody
I
offer you
never
one of
did
them?
smoke it?
Didn't you say you walked into a place once in New York back in 1930 and somebody was smoking?
No.
Oh. Well, I want to thank you once again for tuning into the Old Cow Report. I'm your host, Chuck Lee. With me has been my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the True Stafford. Back from a 2.5-week engagement down at Sacred Heart Hospital. A little bit of summer stock there. We're glad to see that's all been taken care of, and you had a successful run there, and many people saw you down there, Fred. And of course, now we have to move on to, we're moving into the fall here, Fred, the fall lineup.
I know it.
And so we'll see you right here again next time on the Old Cow Report. Adios, amigos and amigettes. You want to say goodbye?
Arrivederci.
There's more to public access community television than meets the eye. Come behind the scenes at your public access center and you'll see sophisticated television equipment. You'll see your friends and neighbors producing shows. You'll see volunteers running cameras, directing, editing, acting, and a trained staff waiting to help. Behind the screen is the world of public access television where the community comes together to tell its story. It takes a lot of people and a lot of work to make the shows you see on Cable Channel 11, and it takes community support. Without the effort of viewers, this unique and important local voice cannot exist. Think of what that means. Watching your government at work from your easy chair. Helpful and informative programs from dozens of service organizations. Extraordinary entertainment from our own talented artists. Local athletes making the big plays. Candidate forums and discussions of important issues facing your community. It can't happen without you. When you support public access with your membership, you support the only voice in your community that belongs to your community, that belongs to you. We can make great things happen with your support. You're the community in community television.